Wait, it also gives me a reason to spend
a lot of time here.
Exactly. Like, there's going to be a day where I really wish I had more time with my folks, so this works out fairly well.
Totally.
Let me get some glasses and some ice, brother. And then we'll have the guy who does like most of my editing, he'll pop in at some point.
Cool.
Once we get off, and maybe pop over there as well.
Oh, man.
You can roll with the headphones over there if you like. You can roll without them if you prefer. You ever use these Biodynamics?
These ones?
Yeah.
No.
World's most comfortable headphones, guaranteed.
We do all of our stuff online because he's in south of LA in Seal Beach.
Nice.
So everything, it's quite the difficult task to manage the time and get everybody on. And
who does the post-production of that stuff?
Drew does, and then like the clipping, the stuff like that you see on like social media is another guy that we have just clipping stuff in the podcast essentially.
Yeah. Let me roll the intro music real quick while I hop in. Cheers, brother.
Cheers. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on the other end of it for a minute.
I think that there's so many guys that deprive themselves of sanity by running these kind of programs. It's like, it's nice just to sit back and let the work get done, you know?
Yeah. How many episodes have you done now?
You're going to be episode 106, I think.
106? That's quite a bit.
Yeah. I haven't made that jump to Spotify and all that stuff, though. I would love to ask you a little bit about that. But
okay. What do you put it out on then?
Just YouTube.
Just YouTube.
Just the boob tube.
We use a program called Simplecast.
Yeah.
And Simplecast puts it out to all of them.
Nice.
So,
and that's like a paid service kind of a thing?
I think it's like $15 a month, and it puts it out to all of them.
And it also hosts the RSS feed that's in the background for those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a weird world of trying to maintain all the places that you want to have your content. But just to give the intro, this is the world's greatest tipsy bingo host, okay? and your favorite DJ and MC, Fuseamania.
Hey.
Thanks for coming on, brother.
No problem. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Fuck yeah. But like the world of podcasting. So you've had the Drew and Fuse show for how long now?
Let's see. We started it in August of 2021. Just stuff kind of started opening back up in the world. And I kind of wish we would have started it a little earlier, but...
Yeah, why would you do it when you're just starting to get all your work back? Like, that seems kind of infuriating.
Yeah, well, we spent about 3.5 months probably just talking about doing it, and finally I was like, dude, we just got to do it. It's not going to be perfect until we start doing it, and then, as it grows, we can grow with it.
Yeah. Well, there's something about this medium that does not call for perfection. Like, I get so many YouTube comments, and the YouTube comments are mainly relating to people not liking the captions, or they think the audio is shit. They're like, what kind of cameras like people, they choose to pick at these things, and that's fine, but there's so much that goes into this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still a labor of love for us, as I'm sure you know how it is. It's a lot of work, and you got to really want to do it. And I think with anything, the more that you do, the more that you get, and the more that you're putting out, the more that comes to you as well. And,
yes.
And I think it's important to, you're doing a very good job yourself of just putting yourself out there and putting yourself out there. And like I said, I think the more that you do that, the more that comes with it.
Yeah. Well, there's a realm of reciprocation with this kind of platforming of people, and like, and most time when you hear that term, it's not in a positive way, but it's like choosing to sit down and give someone time of day to get to know them a little bit more than you do with the singular Instagram post you see, or going to see their sets or something like that. Why don't you tell me about your career as an MC, especially, where there's this side of your musical career that's all about the personality, but there's a character and then there's you.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, the MCing kind of came a little later for me. I was always kind of afraid of the microphone, and honestly, if it wasn't for Danny and the doing like the Tipsy Bingo at Fishbowl, I don't think that I would be as comfortable, on the mic. And even the podcast kind of bringing it out. The more you're in front of it, the more you get comfortable with doing it. And my whole DJ career, basically pre-pandemic, I played for one company for the most part, and that was 4EG and all the bars that they owned. And my first gig I got as a DJ, well, not my first gig, but my first residency was at Pavilion. I had just turned 20.
Christ, Pav, as for a 20-year-old, just going hot on the weekends.
Yeah. Let's see, that would have been 2009-ish, 2010.
So it was hot up on the hill, man.
Yeah, and everything was popping up there. I remember, you either went out to Mount Adams or you went out to like Mount Lookout Square, and there were a couple places downtown, but that was pretty much it, and then finally they opened Righteous Room, and as that company grew, my gigs kind of grew, because I was doing stuff for other spots. My first downtown gig was at Sully's, which is now that's 7th and Race. It's another spot. I forget what it's called now.
If they don't employ you, that's why you don't remember. You know what I mean? It's it's weird when you move away from rooms, because it's not the room that it used to be when you did that.
Yeah, I know Michael Pollock plays there like every Thursday night.
Oh, is it fuck! Now that you said,
I can't think of the name of it.
You mean Wednesday nights though?
Maybe it's Wednesdays. I don't know, but it's like a dinner place.
Bourbon and Barrel.
Yeah, that's
cool.
it. So that was my first ever gig was there, and it was a place called Sully's, downtown. And then I started doing a college night at Sweet in the back of Blackfin, which was later, they called it Local Sports Bar later, and now it's nothing. But then at that same time that I was doing those is when I got the gig up at Pavilion. So I was doing basically a college night at both of those places during the week, and then I started doing weekends at Pavilion. And honestly, at that time, DJs weren't really at the forefront kind of like they are now. The DJ was still kind of tucked away in the corner, and we were just the background music to the night. It wasn't really until like a year or two later where like the EDM boom kind of really hit, and it was like, oh, the DJ is now kind of the focal point in the club or the bar, whereas like if you had a musician, obviously there was always a stage and people wanted, you guys were like the focal point, but it wasn't up until like around then, we were always just kind of stuck in a corner playing background music, and that was fine with me because that's kind of what I wanted to be. I am more of an introvert, an extroverted introvert. So like people kind of take that sometimes as me being an asshole, because sometimes I'm just like in and out of places. I might wave or like whatever, but the being extroverted is something I've had to like really learn how to do. So, getting back to your original question of the MCing, all those years of playing at those spots in 4EG, they weren't really wanting a lot of mic work because it was considered like at the time, more of like a hip hop thing, and I think that there was some stigma that came with that they didn't want in the bars, with that. And where that's kind of changed, I think now, obviously Danny's big on the mic, and that was a big part of his career with radio and all of that. And so he loves that. And that was a side that really I've had to like learn to do more of and be more comfortable with. So really, the past 3 or 4 years is really only me being on the microphone more and more.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I recognize, and I think you put that well. There's a lot of people in this world that are extroverted introverts. They've chosen a career that gets them out of their shell in a way that's somewhat forceful at times, and you can learn a lot in those experiences. But with the amount of familiar faces, you can't give 5% to everybody. You can't give 2% to everybody. Sometimes you just need to draw a line of, I'm done talking to people for the night.
Yeah.
You know, for my own fucking head. But
there's a lot more that goes into the day than just showing up and playing the gig, as you know, and when the end of the gig comes, or even during the gig, it's like I'm kind of doing my thing, and like I don't, there's an expectation of what you have to deliver, and it's like hard to do that and be the host and like of the night, which I'm kind of fortunate for working for Danny now, because I feel like I don't have to do that as much, with his rules at the bar of no drinking for the employees. It really makes things a lot easier, because at the other company, everybody was drinking all the time, and it just became like one giant party all the time, every night. And you feel like you're not only entertaining the crowd, but you're entertaining the staff, and you got to play along to their nonsense of what's happening with them, and
Yeah, well, there's a real side of binge drinking too. That when the industry's handshake is a shot, it's a dangerous place to be.
It is.
And I think you're right. Like, there's times where we don't embrace the fact that constraints are what decides the art. And sometimes the constraints on substances, sometimes the constraints on time. One thing I love about watching the DJ battles is you're taking tons of guys that have had 4-hour sets all year, and they're saying you get 5 fucking minutes, and you're going to make something of this. And because of that parameter, you get much a better idea of how their artistic input plays into that little bit of frame,
Yeah. And, with DJing, there's so many different lanes of it. And we were kind of speaking earlier, off the record about it. And there are so many different ways you can be a DJ and a talented DJ. And a lot of what I do is kind of like behind the scenes with the editing of the music and, how I play stuff. Whereas like a guy like Richie or Combat is more of like a turntablist DJ, and I'm not saying that he doesn't make edits and stuff behind the scenes either, but it's very easy to see, oh, this is what this guy is doing, and this is how it sounds, and
it's like, what's their bag? And when you see guys that do a lot of production on the spot, the great thing about that is it's one time only. It's in the moment it happens. And then there's guys that make very conscientious choices of, this hits a part of my set, but it goes this way when I implement. And I think one thing that DJs get a much harder hand of than musicians, but I think just the cultural sway has brought us both to this, is the way people demand their comfort foods, the songs that they want to hear of the entertainment, has kind of put a limit on how much of your personality you can get out in a 4-hour set.
Yeah. What's crazy is there's 2 ways I have thinking of it. It's almost, I'll explain the 2 different ways. My first thought is that the internet has created this, we put out all this music out there, and it's almost as if it's narrowed down what people actually want to hear and what they like, because they're almost told what's cool by the influencer, right? Like, so like new Drake's cool, you gotta like this. But then when you play it, sometimes you can see people like standing around like, I don't know, like, my friend told me that this is cool and like I'm supposed to like it, but I don't really like it. And I think that's narrowed the almost like the outgoingness of people going to the bar, where they don't want to let loose because they're afraid of not being cool or this and that. But it's narrowed their music taste as a whole. They're afraid to listen to whatever. And at that same time, it's almost so broad now, too, that it's hard to maintain, what's good. Whereas, before it was like, okay, there was just music on the radio and that dictated like the hits, right? So it was like easy to play. But now you have radio, you have Spotify, you have Apple Music, you have TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. Like the fact that you can get hits that only exist in 15-second format, it's just that hook they want. They don't even know about the rest of that song. So if you pull up the rest of that song and try to fit it in your set, you're going to find out that the scope of this that they actually enjoy is way narrower than you expected. So now you have to reintegrate how you have that song in your catalog.
Totally. And when I first started DJing, it was basically just radio at that time. Things were just starting to become digital. So I don't want to take the old man route and being like, back in my day, this is how it was, and we used to get away with playing, more music. Or two, if I was just ignorant to the fact that I wasn't watching the crowd as much and as well as I do now, because I've been doing it so long to where I can tell what works and what doesn't. So I don't know. Sometimes a part of me is like, yeah, it definitely was a little more open back then, but I probably wasn't as on it and as conscious as I definitely am now, because I could pretty much be doing what I'm doing and see, and I'm sure you know this too, where you're like playing a song and you out of your peripherals, you can see how people are reacting, or you notice a guy sitting on the far end of the bar that, he's doing whatever, and, you're still playing your song, and you're paying attention to a lot more. And I don't, maybe I wasn't paying attention as much back then,
Yeah, well, I think there's definitely some change in the culture, but I think, like you said, the safe list of assumptions has changed because taste has changed. I think in some ways, one song can find one listener and the song has served its purpose. That's something that as a songwriter I think is crucial to understand, that you don't need to write hits for the masses. You need to write hits for yourself that become a hit to one person, and then if you get the domino effect and the world decides they love it, that's a beautiful thing. But especially when you're talking about, okay, Serato can now implement with like Apple Music, or what's the Tidal?
Tidal.
So now you're limited to Tidal's catalog, but Tidal has such a wide catalog that the world's your fucking oyster. You can go digging in there for a lifetime and find things that you like that maybe they don't like.
Totally.
And there's a level of putting your foot to the floor that's not to say I know better, but to say that, like, if you're listening to me, it sounds like this, because I have a fear of being dispensable in this market. How many singer-songwriters sound the same? How many DJs sound the same? It's like, I need to take risks on the things that make me more distinguished in that way. And I think y'all have a much harder hand at that.
Well, there's... I feel like as I've grown older, my... what I get out of it has changed as well. What I want from it has changed a little bit. And I'll be the first to be like, I'm not going to come into a night, especially at a place like Fishbowl or Energy, where they're the two primary spots that I play right now. I'm not going to come into the night at one of those types of places and try to educate the crowd of like what I think's cool, because I don't think that's my job anymore. And I'm sure there'll be DJs listening to this that are like, man, fuck that guy, like he's not like real music. But I have a different mindset with it all now, and I feel like my job, in its simplest form, is to make the bar money. And at this point in my career, I'll do whatever that takes to do that and get through that night. Obviously, I'm going to do it in
Body shots off DJ Fuse, $40 a pop. We're going to be rolling.
That might drive people out of there at this point.
Not if they're Jello shots. Okay, it has to be really easy to get it out of your navel.
But I used to, when I was younger. I'm 35 now. Not that I'm ancient, but like I said, I've been in the bars since I've been 20, so it's been a long time of doing this. And I used to fight that urge of like wanting to do what's cool, and I still do to some degree. But I would say, if you come to listen to me DJ, that probably 80 to 90% of what I play, you're probably gonna know. And then that 10% of when I'm not playing, the people like to let you know anymore. They'll give you the thumbs down on it, and the old cutthroat or whatever. And it's like, I'm glad I played. I play songs really quick when I DJ. A lot of times it might just be just the hook. Sometimes it might be hook, verse, hook. But that's probably the most I play of any song. It's just, if I play a verse, it's the verse, the popular verse from the song, and that's pretty much it. And it's their attention span's so small that you can see them like losing energy. And if you want to keep the energy up, obviously is what keeps it fun and exciting. Any given 4-hour set, I probably play about 200 songs in a 4-hour set, and give or take a little bit, each night, kind of depending. But people like to make it known when they don't like a song, you
Yeah.
know, oh, boo, or the
what-
thumbs down. And it's just funny to me because it's like I just played 40 songs in a row that you were pumped for, and now you're going to tell me the one time that you didn't like one. And the room's full of people, they're all dancing, and you don't like this song. Congratulations. Thank you for telling me.
And you know, it builds thick skin to go through that, and it also it's part of what thins out the herd and keeps the people who are really there for it there. But there's something really like I don't think it's fair to say that people's attention spans are shrinking. I think the window of opportunity for people's attention has changed, and that's because the market has changed. It's like we can't say that the listeners are less than they used to be. The listeners are the listeners, and what they are fed is what they are fed. But there's something very odd going on right now where because your Instagram feed is so well oriented towards what you want to see, and your TikTok feed is, they expect the same thing of you when you're up there. And it's really difficult for me to watch people not enjoy themselves, because I think you're spot on. It's not necessarily just bar finances to me, but what are the things that I need to do as the entertainment at this club to bring you back to this club, to give you the conviction that I had such a good time last week that I'm going back over there, because that kind of thing supports the GDP of our community, the money that comes in, the money that circulates, and the money that goes out. And if we don't support each other in that endeavor by letting the music grow and flourish, then we're going to end up with nobody at the clubs.
Yeah.
It's like that's...
And it's tough because, you know, as I'm sure you've grown thick skin, and I've grown thick skin to where I like don't let it bother me. But deep down, like at the end of the day, when you have a bad day, or, you know, it's a rough night and you had a lot of that kind of stuff going on, it does bother you, you know, because, you know, you want to do what's best and make people have a good time. And, you know, it's our job, you know, like our job is to make sure people are having a good time. But at the end of the day, you know, in the bar, the thing that I've learned is there are a lot of miserable people that come in there, and they are okay with showing how miserable they are to other people. And, you know, that's a bar, and that's why they go, is to kind of to let loose. And I'm not a miserable person. I thoroughly enjoy like my life and everything that's going on. I feel like I'm 35 and I'm like the happiest I've ever been with everything that's going on. So
that's beautiful. Anything in your personal life that you think has really led to that conclusion?
You know, I keep referencing this. I've talked to a few people about it recently, and I hate that I reference Pitbull on this, but we had a guy on the podcast and he brought this up, and I have not been able to stop thinking about it since. As there's a video of Pitbull, and he just says, you know, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And I think it's the key to everything that's going on in my life. Like, I feel like I'm doing more work right now than I ever have before, paid and unpaid. I'm just, every day it's something, you know. But it goes back to the more that you're putting yourself out there, the more you're getting, the more opportunities you're getting. And those opportunities have changed for me, you know. They're not just all DJ related at this point, you know. But I think I've just really, coming out of the pandemic, you know, everything changed. I went from working from one company to working for another, and, you know, it was kind of like a reset for me of just, okay, everything you had, it doesn't matter anymore. And then you have to go out there and kind of, I don't want to say like reinvent yourself, because you still have your brand and all of that, but you have to show people why you deserve it still, in a sense, you know? And,
yeah.
And I think that's just been it. I've just been, since I've put my head down and kind of like been a lot behind the scenes, you know, I haven't been going out as much in terms of like showing face and saying hi to other guys that are playing. And a lot of it's because I've just had so much going on there. It's like, you know, when you've been at it for 8-10 hours a day on all these different things, that by the end of the day, you're just like, I don't really want to go out. And the last thing I want to do as the introvert is go say, hi, everybody. Hey, oh, let's take a shot. Oh, and then two, it's like, I like to have fun. So it's hard for me to say no to the drinks and the shots, because I do enjoy it and have fun. But part of it is I know I have so much the next day that I don't go out at night and partake in a lot of that anymore. But back to what you were saying, I think that a lot of why I'm so happy now is just everything has been going well, you know, and I think it's because I've stopped focusing on the stuff that people think matters in this industry doesn't matter, you know, like there's a lot of people that's entire lives, and I'm only saying this because I know you'll understand what I mean, lives on that little block of the Banks. Their entire existence is that little block of bars and the drama that happens within it. And it's like, I don't give a shit about any of that because it doesn't matter. You know, I have a fiance. We've got a great place together. I like traveling. I like doing stuff with her. I have friends that are, I don't want to offend anybody, but I have friends that are like real friends that check up on me and like, you know, we actually do things outside of the block of bars down there. You know, we go play golf. We just do stuff as friends. And I'm not saying this isn't a knock to anybody down there either, but so many people are just so wrapped up in the wrong things within this business. And it's, you know, I'm not involved in that anymore. And that's not me like, oh, I'm on my high horse, I'm so much better than you guys. It's just more of, I've stepped out of that and realized that it doesn't matter. Like I used to be like, oh my God, I'm off tonight. I'm not playing a gig. You know, pre-pandemic, I was playing 5-6 gigs a week. And you know how that is. You do that. It's a lot. It's stressful to be doing that. And then when you're not booked, you get this feeling of like, oh my God, I'm not booked, or it's a Saturday and I'm not booked. And I don't worry about that anymore, you know? Like, well, fortunately, you know, I have steady gigs on the weekends, but you know, stuff has just kind of changed for me. And when you step away from it, I feel like you kind of realize how silly some of it is, you know?
Yeah.
And you see people like they're just living the rat race of going to work at the bar, going home, but in the meantime, getting fucked up, go to work, get fucked up, go home, go to work, get fucked up, go home. And I don't know, there's more to life than that.
That particular process is cyclical in a way that's, you know, it doesn't share the productive mindset that I think we all yearn for. Like, one of the things that's hard in a country that is run by capitalism is there's an insatiable need to get ahead, but there's also an insatiable need to get ahead in your own mind. You know, to get past the clutter, to avoid the drama, to choose the things that serve you well. And it's like choosing not to go out on the bar on your off night and not to stress yourself for having an off night and finding other things that serve other parts of your being. Because I think for folks that we do love, that live their whole life between one block of the city or these couple clubs, the problem is that their identity is based on one thing. So in the lack of that one thing, they fall into the abyss. And I've been guilty of that too. Like
I've totally been guilty of that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, a fiance, I got a fiance in my life as well, that she's one of the greatest reminders that our relationship has nothing to do with the songs you play, the strings you pluck, the shit you do in your work life. Come home and be the human being that you want to be and that I want to be with.
Yeah, and it's almost like, you know, you're like a mini celebrity within the town you play in, right? So it's like people expect, oh, that's Matt Waters. I know when he's playing, he's going to have a good time and he's going to be fun. He's going to talk on the mic and address these people and talk to these people. And, you know, it might come off as like flirting, but it's like, you don't really care. It's like, I don't give a shit about those people. Like, I hate to say that and be like, oh, well, he really doesn't care about me. But it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, they were just people at the show that you were entertaining, and like, that's it.
Well, and I always tell people that like our career comes with a lot of short-term friends. And there's people that are hurt by short-term friendships. They're like, why weren't you there for me? Like that person I need to call on my bad day. And it's like, I got 5 to 10 of those people max, and those slots are all pretty much filled in my life. But if you make the time to come see me at one of my shows and say there's a song of mine that means something to you and you want to talk on my break about it, I will give you all my love and affection and being for that 10 minutes. But if you're wondering why you didn't get more from me, it's like, because now you're treading into a part of my life that I can't let people into. You know, it's a very dangerous thing in your own psyche to feel obligated to every being in the city that comes out to one of your shows. It's like, I barely know you. and I do love you for that reason, but I barely know you, and I can't help you there.
Yeah. I mean, I think you just said it correctly. There's so many of those friends that we all have at the bar that are just like bar friends, and I don't mean anything by it. There's a lot of people that I've loved, that I've met over the years, that have become good friends because they were first bar friends. But, you know, for every bar you play at, you have so many of these people, and, you know, it's hard to balance it all. And
those people tend to be in chaotic points of their life. You know, the industry does have a lot of vices and issues, and people try to bring those things back into your life. But I always think about, like, you live a life on a straight path, at least in your own mind. It's very linear. And sometimes people cross, and sometimes people run parallel, and sometimes people try to push you off into their course.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you and I had a great moment during January of this year where, with very little discussion that we've had outside of our workspaces, we're both on this journey of no booze this month. And just the mutual fucking suck of that, I was like, you know, I think I like Fuse a little bit more now, you know? Because
Yeah.
it makes you feel human. For a few moments, we are on a shared path. And that camaraderie that's the flavor of life. But if you are reaching for people as they veer back into their own life, it's like, then you are trying to possess things that you can't possess, that you can't control.
yeah, and I think you said it right. You meet a lot of people, and I've always said that, like, people are like bumpers. People come into your life and bump you in a different direction that, you know, you might not have gone had they not came into your life. And, you know, I think that there's different levels of success, and, you know, where you want to be. And for me, I'm just a worker, you know, like, I just want to I enjoy what I do, and it's never like enough in a sense. And I don't mean this in a bad way. It's just, I will always want more, like more and more. Like, I'm trying to keep pushing the ceiling, you know. My parents growing up, my dad was, a cop, and my mom was an accountant, and, you know,
What a tight household, you know?
Yeah, and, you know, very middle class, and that's fine. I had it great growing up. I won't say that I never got anything that, like, I didn't want, you know, but, you know, my parents had to save for those things, and it wasn't like they were well off. And I'm just trying to level, you know, not like outdo them, but I just want more for myself and more for what's to come, you know. And I just want to keep pushing this boundary of, like, what I can do. And, you know, it's one of those things too where it's like, when you meet people and they're like, oh, you're just a DJ, and it's like, well, yeah, I am just a DJ, and I'm okay with saying that anymore. That doesn't, like, when people say that to me, it doesn't bother me, but I'm just trying to push the boundary, you know. And there's always this stigma of, there's only so much you can do here in Cincinnati to like level up or be successful. And I just want to push that boundary, keep pushing the boundary, you know. I do a lot, and I do a lot from here, right here in Cincinnati. I feel that people don't even essentially know about, you know. I do work for an app called Fit Radio, and I've been working for them since like 2015, doing stuff, and, you know, they're based out of Atlanta.
What is that, like programming for classes?
So yeah, it's essentially an app that all their music is like DJ mixes, essentially. And they have some guys that work for them, like myself, that they get tons of DJs that submit mixes to them that they use, and they're on the app. But then they use guys like me as, like, their hired guys that work for them. They'll say, oh, we need a rock mix, and within this rock mix we need none of these 15 songs, and the mix has to be between has to start at this BPM and grow to this BPM, and we need you to put something together all for it. So it's a little more challenging than just the average, like, oh, let me put this mix together, you know. It's like, you got to put it together, it's got to be good, it's got to be what they want. They have, like, they're in tons of gyms anymore. I forget exactly how many. I think the last time I asked, they were in like 150 different Orange Theories, and it's an app that you can use and buy on your own, and there's like coaching over the music. And what's cool about the app is, if you're running to like a mix, you can skip the song to the next one without the coaching changing, like the vocal changing.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's really it's cool.
So it's like there's dual sequences going on at all points in time, and I think art does best within parameters, whether that's the limitations of your recording or the limitations of the band or the limitations of this is a cycle class. And when we're talking about what we're trying to do to them for their cardiovascular workout today, I need you to go from 114 to 135 within this time frame. It's like that will cause you to make some connections that the mind would have never seen without some clear, parameters to this.
Yeah, and it's been great working for them. I work for the record pool. It's called Direct Music Service, DMS. I'm an editor for that. So I want to say there's like 5-6 main DJ record pools where guys get music from. The one I work for is one of the main bigger ones. And essentially my job is I do a lot for them anymore, but it's changed over the years. But I make edits where DJs, we put intros and outros on the music that doesn't have them, so it makes it mixable for DJs. So if you're DJ whoever from wherever, you can go onto our pool and download it, and now you have a mixable intro outro edit for you to play in your set. And then we do a lot of custom stuff, custom blends and mashups and transitions to get from one BPM to another BPM. And
is that kind of work what drove you into Ableton?
Yeah. I use Ableton for all that. I want to say it was like right around probably 2010 is when I got Ableton for the first time. And honestly,
shit, you were early, bro.
Yeah. Probably right around then, 2011 maybe. But I just remember another friend of mine was using Ableton, and he was showing me he really didn't know what he was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm always learning a new trick or something, And anytime I don't know something, and there's tons that I've forgotten, I feel like as well, I just Google it, or go on YouTube and search what I'm looking to do, and sure enough, there's somebody with a 5-minute video of this is how you do what you're looking to do, and But yeah, I use Ableton. I feel like it's just what I've grown used to, and it's what I'm fastest at. I would love to learn like you use Logic. I would love to learn more about Logic. And we were talking with another guy on the podcast that I do. He uses
Drew and
Reason.
Fuse Show. Make sure you check it out wherever you want to stream players.
Yeah, he uses Reason. And one of the cool things that I've heard about Reason is that if you can use Reason, you essentially can use a mixing board in real life, because what's the word I'm looking for?
There's a MIDI connectivity of that.
Yeah, and then you can in Reason you can turn it around and plug everything in and do it all. So if you know how to use Reason, essentially you could run sound in real life because it goes hand in hand, which I always think that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, it's interesting when those kind of things cross train you. But I've always heard that, especially in the world of audio, it's take your tools and learn how to use them to their fullest. And don't worry about all the other tools you could be using. Use the stuff that you know how to use and get the job done. Because you'll spend yourself in circles trying to get the next plugin or the next, YouTube feature of what you're going to download to make this kind of thing happen. It's the craftiness is the craft. That's the silly shit that gets people excited about them.
Yeah, and I've just found that, there's something, I think one of the things that I've learned over time, and I don't think this is something that necessarily can be taught, is just less is more, especially within music. It's the simplest songs are the biggest hits, and it's funny to me because I always see super great musicians and they're they're doing so much, and I'm you're phenomenal. You're a phenomenal musician, but you're doing too much, and it's over people's heads, and that's why it doesn't resonate with them. It's you're trying too much. And I even try to think about that when I'm DJing now. It's really just keep it really simple, I'm not really I can do some scratches and that, but I don't even do that much because I think it goes over people's heads, and I'm just, like I said, at the end of the day, my job is to make sure people are having fun and want to come back, and I try to keep it simple because I think simple is what sells and what people can understand,
There's definitely a lot of truth in that, but I think there's also, when you see someone having fun themselves, there's an infectiousness to that. and you can tell when someone's dried themselves out on a certain bag of material or certain things. But you know, it's a double-edged sword of how much are you, you know, pleasing your own mind, and how much you're just like, you know, masturbating to your own thing that you're doing yourself. It's like you need to think about the listeners in this. The listeners are what's going to decide how long you're able to do your thing. But if you don't love doing your thing, it's fickle. You know, people fall short in that.
I definitely think that, you know, what you said, like there's infectiousness within, you know, happiness. Like it's totally true. You could see somebody up on stage that is doing whatever and they're just like so happy and into it that they're like crushing it. I've been to places where that's happened, and it's like, you know, this guy kind of sucks, but he's so happy up there, like, and loving life that everybody is just loving it. And, you know, me and my friend Drew, we talk about that all the time. We're like, sometimes the best ways to, like, you learn some of the best things from, like, a bad DJ because they're just up there taking chances that you would never do because, you know, they're new or whatever, and they just don't care, and they're just doing whatever, and it works sometimes. And you're like, I can't believe this guy just played that song, and like it worked or whatever. But, you know, yeah,
it's nice to keep that beginner's mentality, and their ability to fall flat is something that you lose in your own profession. When it's like,
totally,
you know, there's something very particular about the clubs that you're playing where they are packed. It's not like you're playing to empty rooms. Like in my weekly life, I'll play to a couple hundred, maybe a couple thousand if it's great, and then to 4, you know, days apart. And I need to find out how to balance my own sanity between that.
It's tough. I was doing that forever. Pre-pandemic, like I said, I was doing 5, sometimes 6 gigs a week. And when you go, it's like a mental thing too, you know, it messes with you because you're like, oh my God, last night I was just at this, it was packed all night, you know, and then next night you're playing to 4 people, and it's like, how do you keep yourself entertained? Because it's tough. And the less is more has been even for me with the gigs. Like I find myself, if I do 2-3 gigs a week, even if I play one of them and it's like super slow, I'm still like up there doing my thing because I'm like loving it. And then any more than like 3, I find myself like, oh God,
spread too thin in that regard. Yeah. Well, there's something. I would love to hear what your advice would be to singer-songwriters and people that are on that version of live music when we can't do a verse and a chorus and get off a song. In some regards, in other ways you can with mashups and whatnot. But when it comes to pleasing crowds, like one of the things that I know is that there's a level of outdatedness when it comes to playing songs that you're familiar with. I'm not going to sound anything like the song that you're requesting, even though you're asking me to play that one song. So that's why I tend to lean on the side of, I'm going to play you the things that are so close to my heart, in my mind, that you can't deny that I'm up there trying my damnedest to have the time of my fucking life. But then I have to please what you want in that, you know?
You know, musicians and live musicians, it's tough. I feel like it's a whole new thing. But I've noticed a lot more recently. I've seen, you know, when I've traveled and gone here in Nashville and this and that I'm seeing a lot more musicians playing like a DJ, where I'm seeing guys, they're just playing like a verse, you know, maybe like I said, a chorus, verse, and a chorus, and then they just go into another song. And, you know, sometimes they're doing like little medleys where they're playing, you know, like 5 or 6 songs and kind of, you know, the span of 4 or 5 minutes. And when I see that, I'm like, oh, this guy's crushing it. And, you know, there's something to be said for, you know, doing what original music and just playing the song as is. And I don't know, there's such a happy balance between it. It's tough, and it depends on the room and the crowd. And, you know, because if you're playing to a crowd of 40, 50-year-old people, you know, and they're kind of hanging around after dinner, they're going to expect something completely different than the crowd that's 22 to 25, you know. So it's hard to say, like, what is the right thing to do always, because a lot of it's situational, you know?
Yeah, but I think there's something special when you can look across mediums and see guys making suggestions or making artistic calls that you can take something from. Like one thing for me personally, playing that Tin Roof circuit for as long as I have, and like, you know, there's plenty of stores that don't like my blend of things, and I'm happier to play and lose those gigs on my own terms than I am to learn exactly what that audience looks for. And it's not, hopefully it's not an arrogance if I think I know better, because I don't. Again, the listener's the most important person. But there's a level where it's like, because I'm not just handing it over to them, I'm taking the time to try to learn it exactly like the record, and then I'm still coming up short on what they wanted from it. You know, it's like you could play Sex on Fire for these people, and they might not be happy if it's not fast enough. And it's like the original tempo is way back here, and you want it up here. And there's so many small conniptions of people's sureness in what they want, and a little bit of the arrogance of the listener. That's kind of it's added a spin to what we do. You know, there's a discomfort as the entertainer when you're trying to reach for what you think these people want.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's tough because you guys, you know, as musicians it's different because now with the accessibility of everything, you know, people still want things instantaneous, but you know, I think it is a little different. They see you up there with an instrument and they're like, oh, this guy's like playing, and it's tough. But I think, you know, and this goes for both like DJs and musicians, I think that, you know, you have to do a little bit of what you want within the realm of, with keeping yourself happy at your gigs. You have to be doing some stuff for yourself, else, you know, we're entertainers. If we look miserable up there, yeah, chances are everybody's going to be miserable, you know? And I know this because there's been places where I've been miserable, and I've been miserable to people that have come up and talked to me, and, you know, and I've learned that the hard way, and I try not to be that way ever because, you know, like I said, most people that come to the bar are looking for that escape, and they're looking to you for entertainment and to be that escape. And, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a very wishy-washy ground, but you know, it's also special just to get to have the opportunity to do it. Like you said, like one of the things when you're growing up and you look at what your parents have done to put you in the place that you are, everybody wants to level up, and what that means is up to each individual. But utilizing your blessings, whether that's the weird thoughts that you have, and it's something fucking ridiculous you're gonna say on the mic. Like the other day, dude, I made a joke about rear-ending a family on the mic, and I was just like, God, that was not the swing of the night. I was making a joke about watching the kid's iPad, and I'm like, dude, sometimes I'm in traffic watching somebody's, you know, flip down DVD player. It's like, that's how you end up rear-ending a family. Just didn't hit. I'm like, you know, sometimes those jokes are what makes you, and they're what breaks you as well. It's why when people don't come back to that shit.
Well, yeah, it's you're putting yourself like on that limb, and to some people, you know, it's great because you're going out there, and then, you know, sometimes it falls short, and that's what breaks as well. And it's like you got to be right on the edge of the cliff, willing to fall off, but at the same time, you know, you got to hold your ground. And
yeah,
that's anything. I mean, comedy, anything entertainment wise. Like you look at the guys that are great comedians, and they're the ones pushing the boundaries on, you know, saying the more racy stuff, and like pushing the limit of the jokes, and, you know, sometimes it backfires on them, and, you know, but that's kind of the world as of entertainers that we live in, and sometimes it is going to backfire on
you. Well, I feel like that's also interesting when you look at something like Tipsy, where it's like, this isn't your main gig, it's just something you do, but does require these out on a limb moments where I'm going to try to make you believe that this is so worth your Sunday afternoons. You should come back and see me, and that doesn't happen by just calling a number. It calls by ribbing this guy and praising this person, and calling out for this. And it's like you learn your bits and you learn your new craft in that. And totally. It's exciting if you enjoy that.
Yeah. The bingo is something that, like, you know, if you had asked me, like, oh, would you do this for me? Or kind of, you know, whatever, I would have probably been like, no way. But now it's just like something I do, and it's fun, and it's different, and it's, you know, the way it originally came about is because when everything was shut down, Danny was like, we need to do something at the bar that's like entertaining, but like won't people. We were in Footloose, you can't dance, you can't do any of this fun stuff at a bar where you're supposed to be able to do it at. And we were like, what can we do that's fun? And then he came like up with the bingo idea. Now I kind of see it everywhere. Like you see all these places doing bingo. It's just funny and cool, I don't knock anybody for doing it, but
I knock people for taking ideas, but people don't know that they consciously take ideas.
Yeah,
It's like I rip off my heroes all the time. It's like if you're conscientious about it, you go sniffing for those things once you have a brilliant idea. You question if anyone else has done this, but there is something that's so flattering about the imitation of it,
Yeah, totally. And, so when we started doing that, he was just more like, well, you want to do it? And I'm like, I got nothing else going on, So yeah, totally. Yeah. And, it's fun now. I like it. It's different. I don't have to really do anything music-wise, which is nice, Yeah. We just let the music play in the background and... sometimes we do some themed stuff. We might do a themed bingo. We haven't done one in a while, but we'll probably do one soon, I imagine. But
those kind of things that are so playful, it's like some aspects of this job are serious, and some aspects of this job are meant to be a joke. You know what I mean? Like, I have bits of information before songs that, like, I'm not trying to get you to love this song. I'm trying to get you to laugh so you'll be open to the song,
Well, one of the things that I like, and the security guys always think I'm weird. They're like, "Oh, let me pass out the cards for you." I'm like, "No, don't." I'm like, that 10 seconds that I walk by their table and talk to them is the 10 seconds I get to talk to everybody, and then I get to choose who's cool and who's not, and who I can make fun of and poke fun at, and who's there with their wife that doesn't want to be there, and then I can be like, oh, hype him up to make him feel like, oh, I'm gonna win, or like whatever, It's the little bit that I need to like get to know the people that are there, which makes it fun because then it's a personal experience for them.
Yeah, and what a brilliant thing to say. Like, you get minimal opportunities to show mutual investment in your listeners. And you should take those opportunities as a gift, not as a shitty side aspect of your job. It's like sometimes people say things to me on my break where I'm like, do you not realize that I want to strangle you right now? Like, legitimately. Like, you're driving me nuts. And then, like, I have one of my favorite songs I've ever written is about this guy telling me how he met his wife. And I fucking hated him telling me the story. I'm like, please leave me alone. But I needed that story. It's like, you don't realize that sometimes when people interject into your life, when they come bumpering in, that's the cosmos giving you a gift, man. Call it what you want, if it's God or if it's randomness, but that's the flavor, baby.
Yeah, and it's funny because I always tell my friends, like, I'm like, being the bingo host is like so much more easier personably than like DJing, because you're just on the mic and talking, and like, you can really kind of be yourself. You can make it as fun as, you want. And trust me, I have my days where I go in there where I'm like, my introvert side is showing, and I'm not doing as much as my fun days. Like, even some of my friends that come, they'll be like, today was a good bingo. They're like, today wasn't, you weren't on it today as much as you were. And,
But it's funny, like, that's one of the things I love most about this show is getting to hear those things from you, because as someone on the outside that is a short-term friend that gets to see every so often, it's like you're more personality than you are a DJ to me. Yeah. Maybe that's by the facility that I know you through, but it's clearly something that you put time into, and the ROI is something that people don't tell you all the time, but it's felt. People feel like they know you because you do these extra things outside of getting up and running your set, or they feel like they get to know me because of the bullshit I say on this show or in between songs or on my break. It's like, if you don't take a moment to be a human, no one's interested in a DJ. People are interested in a person,
I agree, and I think that's been always one of my, like, I don't want to say, like, flaws, but, like, there's tons of DJs that have made businesses for themselves running a multi-op where they're booking other DJs, and they're doing weddings, and then they have this guy that goes out and this guy that goes out. And for me, one of the things that I've always like, it's very personal for me, because when somebody books me, they want me, and they want me the person sometimes, not just me the DJ. Sure, they're happy that I show up and do a good job, but like, a lot of what I have is from just being a good person, you know, and showing up on time and, you know.
And taking the time to get to know them. And like you said, not only being a person, but if they asked for you, they want you. So be you, you know, don't hold back on those things.
Yeah. And people, you know, one of the things too about me is like, if you were like, well, what's your favorite music to play? You know, if you could play one thing all night, I would probably still say, oh, I'm going to play everything, because I do genuinely like a little bit of everything. And, you know, I get bored. You know, if I'm up there doing 4 hours of just playing like house music, I'm probably going to get kind of bored of that, you know? So me being me is playing a little bit of everything. And if I could describe my perfect night, you know, it would be a night where I'd get to play like some classic rock, some new hip hop, some cool house, you know, like a little bit of everything and all in one. Those are my perfect nights. And, you know, I do a lot of that. I feel like every night. But some of it, you know, I don't want to say like you're forcing it. Sometimes I am forcing it. Like, oh, I'm going to play a little bit of this for a minute just to kind of break up what I'm doing. I can tell they're not really into it, but it's also a good, because there's these people standing over here blocking the bar. These people want to go to the bar. There's a lot more thought that I think goes into it sometimes too.
That is a really weird point where it's like, even if they're not watching you, you have a passive opportunity to provide something, not hypnosis, but like you're manipulating the crowd with everything you do. You know, whether you're going to slow it down or whether you're going to throw them a classic or you're going to push it with something new. It's like there's a lot of psychology that goes on in the what and why. And if you don't take the time to develop that psychology, then you start to run dry. And that's when you become really dispensable, is when you don't have your own personal touch of how you work a room.
Totally. And I think the older I've gotten, I've realized that not just as an entertainer, but like it's my responsibility to control the room too. Like to control it from something bad happening. If I'm watching people and I could see all these guys are getting a little aggressive, it's my job to make sure I maybe calm the room down a little bit to kind of, and then maybe get the security. Hey, is everything okay over here? You know, yeah, I like when I can make everybody have a good time and nothing crazy has happened. I don't like getting the room. Some guys think as DJs their job is to make the room as crazy as it can possibly be and keep it at that level and like
keep the drinks spilling and the fights rolling.
Yeah. It's like that's not, in my opinion, like what's good. Like, you know, in my opinion, and it's taken me years to like get to this point of understanding of like, no, it's our job to like be entertaining and have the energy high like that. But it's like, again, it's like you're on the cliff. You want the energy to be that high. You don't want to fall over it. You want to stay like right on that, you know,
on the cusp of control.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think when you make people feel like it's unpredictable, but you're predicting it, that's when you know you're doing your job well. It's transparent that you're manipulating.
Totally. Me and my friend Drew, we talk about this all the time. Like, as a DJ, nobody remembers you because you're the guy that played all the hits. They remember the couple times that you do take the chances and play the weird song and it works out. And like, so it's those little bit of curveballs as a pro that you can throw out there, that's what people like really will remember in the night.
Yeah. Well, I think that jumps across to my realm of things in a really potent way, because if I put one of my songs in a set, I'm putting up against the hits that have been requested all night. And if I flop, I flop. That's understood. I can take a guy giving me this or giving me a thumbs down. And it's like, that stuff's hard on the mind. But it's good to put yourself in that position, because the ROI for when it goes well is insurmountable. Those aren't just fans. Those are people. You know, those are people that will come back and show you love and buy a T-shirt and buy a concert ticket and send you a nice note on Instagram when you need it. It's like, you don't realize the magnitude that is a living, breathing individual in your life that felt like you gave them something that they can give back at some point.
Yeah. It also makes me feel weird when you have like somebody that's like a fan like that. I don't know if I love the band Rush.
No shit.
Yeah.
You like Rush?
I have a Rush tattoo on my arm. This exit stage left, and it says closer to the heart.
If you would have asked me any band that I wouldn't assume that you love, it'd probably be Rush. Like deep dude prog rock.
Yeah, totally. But I remember watching the documentary, and they were talking about how like Neil Peart doesn't sign autographs because, you know, he doesn't like that interaction. Like he feels it's almost like he likes what he does and he does it, but like the recognition for it he doesn't like because it makes him feel awkward. And that's kind of how I feel sometimes, where it's like people, oh man, you're like great, and I'm like thanks, and then they like keep driving it home, and I'm like, well, this is making me feel awkward now, like, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I've never like felt so like when I heard that him say that in this documentary, I was like, oh my god, I'm not alone in the way of feeling like finally somebody I relate to in that sense of like. The compliments sometimes feel awkward to me after a while, you know, or it's like you have a guy and he's like, you were great. And you're like, oh, thanks, you know, and then you're just, no, really, you were great. And you're like, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Well, and some people get caught in the affectionate loop, which is an odd thing that we all drunkenly gush because in the world we live in, it's not perceived well if you are overly emotional towards a lot of people. And there's a lot of people that are deprived of that kind of thing. It's like, I'm big on, if you want to tell me you love my set so much, give me the biggest hug you got and then get the fuck away from me. You know what I mean? Because I'm not going to give you more than that. It's like, I want you to come back whenever you feel like this serves you. But don't feel like you owe me anything. You know? Like,
totally.
Like, we are of the same matter that will be something else. And Neil Peart's a great example of, he just gave you everything.
Yeah.
So wanting anything more is an odd ask because he can't do that as well as he's going to do if you just stay out of his way.
That's the great way of putting it, and I've never. That's you answered the question of like, what more can I give you? I just gave it all to you. So, yeah. Sometimes people are weird. You know?
For sure. Like you said, people are coming to the bars because they have questions unanswered in their own heart, and that's difficult. But here's something I would love to hear you speak on. There's a lot of DJs and bands that work for a company or that work within a certain parameter, and now you work more alongside a group of really motivated individuals. And what's the power of the individual to you, you know, working for entrepreneurs and being in that realm yourself versus corporate America and corporate entertainment?
You know, I feel like I've been really lucky because you know, through what I've done, I've always been able to kind of do what I want within limits. But I've kind of also understood those limits, and like, you know, I work for Danny now, and Danny's my boss, but he's also my friend. But like, we have a really good understanding of like what he expects and what he wants. And, you know, a lot of that he's kind of taught me over the last few years. I feel like I kind of like knew things, but then I've had a better understanding of like it all, you know. I've kind of always felt like, oh, my job is to be the entertainer and like do this and keep control. But like in a weird way, I didn't fully understand it. Now I feel like I really fully understand like what I'm doing. And I feel lucky because, you know, his stuff is probably, his bars are probably more like corporate ran than probably a lot of other ones where, you know, these
got no shows.
Yeah, completely. And you know, he's pretty strict on a lot of things, and that's honestly, it's fine by me because, you know, at the end of the day, we're bars where people come to get fucked up, and it's like, you know, there needs to be a little bit of rule and strictness because you give people an inch, they take a mile, you know. And I don't know. I don't know if I answered the question there, but
well, I think in some ways you did. When you can work for and with somebody that you respect as an individual, it's not a hierarchical thing. It's a bit of give and take. You know, a mentor and a supporter. Yeah. You know, and a friend. Like I saw a picture of you the other day carrying that red leprechaun bar, like literal bar, into this fucking building.
Yeah.
And I can tell that you are breaking your back, you know, in the midst of making this kind of thing happen. But that also reminds me that this is a team that you and I get to be a part of. Like, that's the team that you and I know each other through. And that's something that guy builds. Mm-hmm. And when you can point to a person and say they're facilitating these relationships, it's a reminder that when we facilitate relationships in our own lives, we let people be people, but we encourage people to work together. That's what makes a scene. That's what makes the GDP grow. That's what makes the city become a music city. It's not overnight. It's over decades of hard work, but mutual love and support, man.
I'm excited for Red Leprechaun and what we've got going on because, you know, it allows us to do a lot more. You know, we have Fishbowl right now, and a lot of times you have artists coming through, and, you know, it doesn't make sense. You know, it's a smaller bar. We can only pay what we can pay. And, you know, Danny can only pay, I say we a lot, but he can only pay what he can pay where it makes sense. But now with Red Leprechaun coming, it's going to have this whole opportunity of, oh, well, you know, we can't pay this, but you can book this gig here and then this gig there. And, you know, if that's worth it to you, you know, we can put you in for 2 nights or, you know, maybe 2 gigs in a day. Maybe you play happy hour here and you play later down there.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that opportunity for a lot of people because I think it's going to open the door for a lot of cool stuff, you know, musically for a lot of artists, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, like you said, sometimes when you give an inch, people take a mile. It's like, have some cognition in what you ask for. Know your worth at all points in time, but when it comes to the people that provide you opportunity, treat them with the grace, respect, understanding, and love that they sign a check with. Because at the end of the day, like, you and I both felt what it was like to have all your gigs taken away because you weren't an essential worker. And the drunks in my life tell me I'm essential all the time, but it turns out that wasn't true.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. I think it showed, you know, that you know, at the end of the day, you know, we're not quote unquote essential, but like the world needs it. The world needs us. And, you know, it was like, I feel like it was getting to the point of like everybody, no matter like what side politically you were on, you're like, all right, what is actually going on here? You know, like, what are we doing? You know,
Yeah.
And finally things kind of opened up and it was like, I always tell people, like, Halloween is, like, the greatest night I always DJ. And I'm like, here's why. And this is probably a stupid reference that I'm about to make. But Halloween is the greatest night because everybody's out and they're in a dumb costume and they're, like, being vulnerable and, like, fuck it, I'm just gonna have fun tonight. And I'm, like, dressed like Frankenstein and a shitty-looking Frankenstein that I got out of a bag.
You're showing the meanest bulge that, what was your costume this year? I sent you a message. I was like, are you wearing a
Scuba
cup?
Steve. Yeah, I was Scuba Steve. And
Dude, that was an OnlyFans cosplay. It was so funny.
Yeah, so, you know, you look ridiculous, but everybody goes out with this, you know, mentality of like, fuck it, we're having fun tonight. And it's like, I felt like for like almost like 6 months after the restrictions were lifted, that's how it felt. Everybody was just like, woo, you know, almost to like, all right, calm down there, buddy. Like, you know, like,
yeah.
But that was great. And it's slowed down now. I think things are, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think things are like feeling more normal at the gigs where people are like, it's like back to kind of how it was to where
Yeah, it's a new normal. It's developed in the same way that, you know, if you and I are both blessed enough to still be doing this in our 50s and 60s, you know, in a different facilitation, it's not going to be the world we look back on now. It will be what that is. But the opportunity to do so, like this, the fact that you and I both get born with a citizenship in a country that you are free to be an individual and to follow the career path you want. So if your parents made the sacrifice of being a cop and an accountant, which sounds like two of the most difficult and boring career paths ever, you know, and like, and God bless them for doing it because those jobs are more than essential, more than appreciate. But then their son gets to be the entertainment, you know, and bring joy to a different realm of people. Like, so tell me about your Reds position this year. Congrats, man.
Thanks. Yeah. The Reds thing's kind of just crazy how it happened. And, I got it this year, just a couple weeks really before the season that I found out that I was going to be doing that. And there's a lot more that I'm doing with them that I can't talk about at the moment. But
suspicious, nice amphetamines, hopefully.
But yeah, so I'm just an in-game DJ for the Reds. I sit up in the production booth. me and another guy named Nick. Nick is a full-timer for the Reds. Nick is a great guy. He's really like shown me the way of doing things up there. And it's crazy because it's yes, I'm the DJ. I'm using a completely different software and program there, and you kind of have to, because the program we use every night is Serato, or there's other programs like Serato, but for what we're doing there, it doesn't. It's completely different. Any sound that you hear during the game, we're triggering. There's so much going on in a baseball game. Excuse me.
What?
So much going on in a baseball game that, it's so quick, and you have to be able to get to things quickly. And we use a software up there called Click Effects, and it's great. I love baseball. I'm happy to be doing it. I'm also grateful that this is the year I started into it, because I don't really know any difference. But with all the rule changes, it's making the game a lot faster. I think league-wise, the games are all averaging out to about 2.5 hours, whereas before they were all, I think
4 or 5.
Yeah, 3.5 hours. And 3.5 hours was like an average, and some of them, were going really long. Some of them were going 4 hours. Now, but with that being said, it's changing how things are happening between inning breaks and player walk-ups and all that stuff, because there is less time. So now all I know right now is this quickness, and I'm trying to adapt to it and all that. But it's great. It's different atmosphere, that I'm used to working in, because it's very corporate, but it's awesome. Everybody's been super nice. Everybody likes being there. It's cool. I'm happy to be a part of doing that, and I feel like lucky at the same time, and some of my friends have been like, you shouldn't feel lucky, like you've done enough to be doing something like that. But I feel lucky because I'm happy to be doing it, and when I'm there, every time I've been there so far, it feels like the first day of doing it, where it's like, oh, this is so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
but you gotta stay humble in it, man, and as someone that watches your life from a distance, and is one of the main people that are rooting for you to do great. You're doing really beautiful things, man, and that comes down to the person you are and the work ethic you put in. So thanks for taking the time to share that with the people today. Fuseamania, everybody. Anything you want to promote? Anywhere they should follow you?
Just follow me at Fuseamania on Instagram. From Instagram, you can get to all my other stuff that I got going on.
Cool. Check out the Drew and Fuse show. Cool. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
Fuck yeah, Blair. Oh. Hopefully we didn't run too long.
No, it's okay. It's all good.
I'm glad you snuck back in. I was like, I wonder if he got in. Aiden?
To that point that you guys were just talking about, though, I just watched a video on it 2 days ago. In 2020, games were an average of 4 hours and 30 minutes long.
Yeah.
During 2020. We didn't have shit to do.
Yeah.
They should bring amphetamines back into baseball.
No, I work at the live production down at UC. Have you met Jack Bolander out there at the Red Jet?
Jack Bolander. The name sounds familiar.
He looks like me, except he's got big curly hair. Anyway, that whole production crew down there.
I'm sure I've seen him.
Yeah.
I've only been there for a month, and I'm only there some of the games. I'm doing about half, which is great.
That's how I am with UC. Like, I'm doing a baseball game tomorrow.
Yeah.
I try and get I mostly do football season and then basketball, but this year I was like, fuck it, let's get some baseball in there, let's get some volleyball, soccer, all sorts of other shit. So
it's cool for me because the Reds are taking they want to take more of a modern approach with the music and stuff too, and kind of get away from some of the classic-y rock stuff that was just
They still have an organ player, don't they?
Yeah. John's
I know
cool.
that.
Dude, one time I watched the video on the organ player for the Knicks, and I was like, that guy has the coolest fucking job in the world. Cause
Every stadium has one guy that gets paid by the MLB. I don't even think it's by the stadium. But
bro, just trying to keep organ players fucking employed.
He plays in the Rusty Griswolds.
No shit.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the Rusty Griswolds at every fucking parish festival I ever went to. It was awesome.
St. Michael's, baby.
Yeah. He plays John Schutte is his name. And dude, he's one of those guys, that I'll play a song for something and he'll be just like sitting there playing it, you know, like he's really
Can't help but do the math and figure out what.
Yeah.
Piano players are best equipped for that too, because the musical math that they do is just built into that instrument. Western music makes sense on that medium.
Yeah.
So they can't help but be like, oh, I see you going from the 1 to the 6 and then pulling us back to the 4. It's like, that's cool shit, man.
He's cool though, and he's been really easy to work with too, because like some of the games he's not there, and like so we have like some of the organ stuff recorded, and I'll play it like between breaks or whatever. But like.
Oh, we totally forgot to take a picture with
it's fine.
Chris.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's great, and he even does like a good job of like playing some new songs and some old like one of the ones that just sticks out. He was playing like the John Cena theme song, and it was kind of funny because he's not playing it on the organ.
That fucking communist John Cena. Are you much of a WWE fan?
Yeah, I love it.
I'm trying to black out and go to Monday Night Raw sometime soon if you ever want to go.
Yeah,
The Royal Rumble?
Dude, I've gone to a WrestleMania twice. So.
What?
Yeah.
Dude, you're a deeper fan than I expected. You should be ashamed of yourself.
I love it. You got to watch it with the mentality of like you're a child, though. That's the way to enjoy it.
No, I didn't get it growing up. Well, because, like, I was a 2002 baby, so, like, the WWE wasn't in, like, its peak then. It was, like, starting to fall off a little bit, so I just started getting back into it, though, because they got, like, Logan Paul.